I know, I had to do it. I had to cough so bad. I said I was ready, and then I was like, I'm gonna cough right as she turns it on. Oh God.
It's only been like an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
When I tell you I had a coughing fit in front of one of my clients, bitch, like a coughing fit, like one where I was like, it was
worst.
She was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, like it's tears streaming down my face. Still not as embarrassing though when it happened in high school, because
of course,
like my cough always turns into this. Like it's fine, it's like a random dry cough, and then like 1 or 2 times I'll have these like coughing fits. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, in high school I was like, I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe this is happening to me. Oh my God.
God forbid you had to blow your nose like in middle school.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't. I was like, no, I don't. I don't need to. Like, cause this looks better. And now when I see Sophia like kind of like dabbing her nose, I'm like, get a Kleenex.
Every time.
Like you can't even imagine, like you didn't know that it looks that bad.
Yes.
Yep. Now 100%. I keep
100%.
futzing with my nose. I don't have a fucking, okay, I have Kleenex right here. I was like, oh my God. Just started the fucking episode and I don't have Kleenex. Jeff wanted to be upset with me that I had like 9 boxes of Kleenex in our grow border one time. A month and a half later, guess how many boxes we have left?
I was going to say probably 1.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. We go through 2
and then
nobody's business.
And then 2 open ones in the house, but 1 box left. So do not come for me when I order Kleenex when you and Sophia are like,
yep.
They're like
so
this.
Your nephew has no concept of how to use a fucking tissue. I'm like, can you not blow your nose once and throw it away? Like you can.
You are being wasteful. You're being
wasting
wasteful. Sophia's the same way.
It drives
the same exact way. She's like this.
Literally.
I'm like, what do you just
There's
use?
So much tissue left.
Use the air.
There's
then.
so much tissue left.
Why don't you just think about the concept of a tissue and maybe don't even use one? Now I got fucking lint on me. Anyways, what are we talking about today? Yeah, I have a blanket on too, people, okay? Don't come for me. It's Wisconsin. It's winter, and I wanted to be comfy.
Yes, facts. So this is episode 87, and it was requested by one of our listeners. And this is a very...
It can be a polarizing topic.
I was going to say debatable topic. Polarizing is a good way to describe it. So
yeah,
it was the concept of, would you date or have a partner who has a best friend of the opposite sex?
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you navigate that? So for me, I absolutely would be with somebody who has best friends of the opposite sex. Now, me from 15 years ago... No, longer than that. Well, maybe like 15 years ago. I would have told you no, because I was very insecure with myself. I was a baby, right? Me now, I know what I have to offer a relationship. And I also know that if somebody's going to go outside of my relationship, I can't control that. Whether it's with a best friend or a fucking stranger, I have no control of that. Because I think that's where the argument lies of like, well, what if they cheat because they're so close, blah, blah, blah. Like you could make up endless scenarios in your head of all the what ifs and what have yous. But at the end of the day, none of that is going to stop anything from happening. And also the primary issue with, well, there's 2. So if you do not want to be with a partner who has best friends of the opposite sex, it's an insecurity issue for you, right? And it's a trust issue. If you trust your partner, it shouldn't be an issue. If you are secure within yourself, it should not be an issue. So I think in those moments, asking yourself, like, why does it make me feel uncomfortable if they have a best friend of the opposite sex? What is it that I'm thinking about? What is our relationship as a whole, right? Like there's plenty of questions that you can ask yourself, but ultimately, to me, my opinion is that it's a huge insecurity issue. Because I've also been on the receiving end of I had a best friend that was a guy and I was told I couldn't talk to him. So that's not fun. And that first happened in high school. With my high school boyfriend, I ran that shit. I was like, goodbye. Like, you're not going to tell me who I can't talk to. Like, they're going to be here forever. You're probably not. So and he didn't like that. But then as I got older, I just so desperately wanted to hold on to a relationship that I was like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. Like, I'll cut them all off. I won't have friends. I won't have social media. You know what I mean? Not friends. Like, it's not like I'm isolated from everybody, but like, I won't have male friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
So as you were talking, and like as we kind of talked about this outside before we started recording earlier today, I was like, yeah, words. Like as you were talking to, I started noticing myself doing my zone, and I was like, fucking look around, Mari, like get up, move around, because focusing has been hard for me today. So when we were first talking about it today, I was definitely in the same boat of like, it is not my job or responsibility to monitor who other people's friends are and like say who you can and cannot be friends with. And then I thought of this like caveat as you were talking, which I know that you'll agree with me on, right? And it's a beautiful segue into that. Yes, the issue that you just talked about, I definitely think is an insecurities issue, right? Of if this is a traditional, like you met this guy, his friend, I'm going to use it as like, as if we're talking about you and I. Met this guy, he's got a friend, it's a girl, they've been friends for forever. And it is a seemingly normal, healthy, you know, like friendship that has boundaries and everything. Excuse me. The caveat I was thinking is like SNL skits or like Mad TV skits started popping up in my head of like those scenarios of best friends who are like overly enmeshed with each other of like, oh my god, this is my best friend, like whatever, and like crossing boundaries and shit. Yes. And so that is to say, and I also was thinking of this of like, let's cover our asses here, right? Okay, because again, it can be very polarizing. Of boundaries have to be laid out, right? What are you comfortable with? And then we set boundaries. It is not the other person's job to manage our boundaries or abide by them or behave and obey. It's our job to enforce our boundaries. And if that person respects the boundaries, awesome. If they don't, we have the choice then of whether we're going to stay in that relationship or continue to move on. Does that make sense? So like you've got a best friend and you're over there smoochy smooches with your best friend, and I pull you aside and, you know, hey, I'm uncomfortable. Here's what I would prefer. I completely understand you have a best friend who's of the opposite sex. I would just prefer if you guys were not physical with each other. In that sense, that makes me pretty uncomfortable. Someone can either say, yeah, I completely understand that. That makes sense. And or be like, we've always done that, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's not my job to attempt to get that person to change their behavior, but it is my job to manage my boundary and expectations, and then to decide if I'm going to stay in a relationship where I'm actively stating and being vulnerable and saying this makes me uncomfortable, whether or not that person is going to meet me there. Well, then I'd leave because I'm not going to stay in a relationship that I'm uncomfortable with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Go for it.
Push your mic back just a little bit.
I am like up on my shit too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry if everyone blew an eardrum with me coughing into my microphone.
It's a two-pronged question.
Yeah.
The first part is, do you believe in emotional affairs?
Yes.
And the second part is, would you feel some type of way if Jeff had a best friend that was a woman and he shared things with her that he did not share with you?
I think it depends on what it was.
I'm trying to think of like what would be.
Because I can give you a preface like this. Jeff is adopted, and so he has sisters. He has biological sisters, and he has sisters who are his adoptive sisters. And there are things that he has shared with his adoptive sisters when we were dating that he didn't share with me right away. Like, for example, his biological grandmother had passed, and he did not share that with me until like his adoptive sister told me like a week after it happened. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I think I was like, okay, well, I know she was important to him and he hasn't said anything and I don't know what to do. So I was like, how's your grandma? It's like, she died. I was like,
he's like, well, now that you ask, she passed.
So. She's 6 feet under. Like, I was like, oh, are you okay? I'm sorry, guys. I really gotta stop smoking. It's catching up with me.
This Virginia Slims are really taking
I
a
mean,
toll at this point.
You would think when I got the fucking like, I'm stuck in my blanket. When I got like the mega pack of like cough drops, I'd have some in front of me, but God no. So like I feel like that could have been a moment where I could have felt some type of way, but I didn't, because I look at the situation and I'm like, we're just not there yet. So.
Or was it because it was his sisters and not a girl best friend?
I think I view his relationship with his sisters differently than brother-sister relationships, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, like like a politically correct way to say it or put it without potentially sounding disrespectful, which I absolutely do not mean in any disrespectful way. I think, and from what has been discussed with me, it's just that there's different bonds. And so I view it like that. Because there's things that I share with my best friends that I don't share with my sister, but like vice versa too. Like there's things that I share with my sister that I don't share with my best friends. So I think maybe I try to put that lens on it too. Like if I was with somebody and they shared something with their best friend and not me, like we have a different relationship. We have an intimate relationship, and your relationship with your best friend, God willing, and that's where the boundary is going to come in, is not an intimate relationship in the sense of like that physicality purposes. So the same way I would be worried about like, do I smell okay? Do I look okay? You know, is my breath okay? When I'm with my best friend, I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you think I look like. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like a boy or a girl, it doesn't matter to me. So I think I would view it like that. Like I think when you're dating somebody, you view it as like there's more to lose there. Does that make sense? Because the relationship with your best friends have been built with vulnerability over time. So they've seen those parts of you, the negative parts, the great parts, that like they've been on that journey with you. And when you're building that intimate relationship with somebody, it's scary to do that right away.
Well, and I think that's where the intimidation comes in terms of from the aspect of the other partner of like, you have this really strong bond with another person, and that makes me feel uncomfortable because, you know, I want that with you, or we don't have that yet, and things like that. I think what also tends to happen, and this is coming from like a cis female's point of view, right? Of like having a male best friend, people always assume that one of you has been in love with the other person.
Yes.
Like at some point you guys had to have been in love. I can tell you right now, shout out to Curtis, because I know you watch his videos sometimes. I love you with my whole ass heart, but like that was never us.
Yeah.
And so when we were best friends, he had to stop talking to me because his girlfriend didn't like it. And so I was on that receiving end, and that fucking sucked. And then I was in a relationship and I had to stop talking to him, and we just lost contact and things like that. But I loved him legitimately like my brother. Like he was like a brother to me. There was no, as far as I know, there was no crushes. But here's the thing, even if there was, nothing was ever acted upon.
Yeah.
We treated each other like brother and sister. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, is everybody like that? No, not necessarily. Maybe there are people that like have hooked up with their best friends. I don't know. That wasn't my experience. You know what I'm saying?
No. I didn't hook up with my best friends, but I think being a Gemini sometimes gets me in trouble because I love talking to people and I love finding out about them. And then my brain starts to flip that into something, and I'm like, I think we've got something here.
We're in love, actually.
It's so bad. Like my best guy friend ever in the whole world, Chase Hansen, I grew up with him. I love that kid. He is such a great kid. He still is. Obviously, not obviously, nobody knows him, but great kid. Grew up to be a great man, great husband, great father, all of those things. I had known him since we went to school together, K through 8th grade, but in like 7th grade-ish, I was like, I think we've got something here. And he was like, no, we don't. And I was like, I think we do. I think it just don't know it yet. And then that fizzled out because it never was lit. So, and then Vitaly was one of my great friends, and I was like, I think we have something here. And he was like, no, we don't. And I was like, no, we don't. And still one of my greatest friends to this day. And then one of my best friends in high school. Well, I wouldn't say best friend, but he was like one of my great guy friends who he was always just a joy to talk to. Ryan Caulfield. He was a good kid. Really, he was fucking funny, man. That's the thing. If we can have good conversations and you can make me laugh, man, it's hard. It's hard for me to separate. It's real hard for me to make that separation. But I think I just have to think about it a little bit, and then I'm like, no, that was weird. Why did I do that?
Well, and the other part is like your previous relationships are going to dictate how you feel in your future relationships, right? If you allow that to happen. So if you are somebody who's been cheated on multiple times, there's going to be that insecurity of like, well, then it's going to be so easy for you to cheat on me with your girl best friend, or fill in the blank of whatever sex that person is.
It's not fair to take that lens and apply it to other relationships that you've been in. The person Jesus, I was not coughing at all when we were talking for an hour and 5 minutes before, but now what is this? It's because I'm getting fired up. My train of thought.
You can't bring that lens.
You can't bring that lens and place that on other relationships because it's completely unfair. And this is why, as a therapist, I am so hard up on people when they get out of relationships. Please take time for yourself. Please work on the insecurities that you had in that relationship. Let's work on skills and building things around them, building coping around them, building new insights, challenging thoughts, because you don't want to bring that in and apply that filter to the relationship that you're in, because you're going to self-sabotage. It's going to be this insecurity. And eventually that person is going to be like, I'm sick of you projecting this onto me. Either they're going to leave or they're going to flow into doing what you're constantly accusing them of doing, because it's one way or the other, right? It's the fork in the road. So I like harp on that over and over and over again. And I'm like, guys, I'm not saying it to be rude and be like, be alone forever. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But like, I wholeheartedly do not believe that had I not had the relationship and the dating experience and the working on myself, that I would be in the relationship I am with Jeffrey. I really do not think that I would be, because I think he would have been like, you immature bitch. He would never call me a bitch. Oh my God.
Well, and the other aspect of it too is the anxiety of the situation, right? And we talk about this all the time. You worrying about somebody being unfaithful is not going to stop it from happening.
No. You're just grasping at straws.
Yes. And then you're projecting that onto them. And then, like you just said, it's going to cause self-sabotaging stuff where you're just going to start fighting then, because you're already creating these scenarios in your head that like, well, this is probably going to happen, or I'm just trying to protect myself. I'm putting up these walls. But for what? For what? You cannot be in control of every scenario in your life, including the other person. You are in control of you, and that is it.
That's literally what I was just going to say. You can only control yourself and how you react to situations. So when we say that, when you are dating somebody and you are paying attention and mindful about red flags or boundaries you've set or any of those things, when they show you who they are, listen. Pay attention the first time and set the boundary and see if there's action to follow that up. If you say, hey, I was uncomfortable with that, I don't like that, right? Because I'm not saying like see a red flag and fucking run, right? Have the discussion. Sometimes people aren't called on their shit. And then once somebody calls them on their shit, they're like, oh, you know what? I am doing that. Okay. Like, I understand. I'm going to try not to. The importance is looking for the action that follows that up then. Okay. Where's the, like, if I'm uncomfortable with you talking to this girl until 6 a.m. every morning, and the hugs and the lingering touches and things like that, here's what would make me more comfortable. I understand you guys are best friends. However, the lingering touches and things like that makes me a bit uncomfortable. Could you be mindful of that? If there's some action behind that, okay, like we can make improvements on this. But if the person So if the person just blatantly disregards what you said, leave that relationship.
Sure.
Like, you are in control of that.
Mhm.
And here's the thing. If people get caught up in this thought of like, I'm never going to find somebody. I'm never going to find someone like them. They're disrespecting the boundaries that you're attempting to set. Why would you want to stay there?
Correct.
If you're openly having these conversations and discussions with somebody and they're like, I don't give a fuck about what you say.
Mhm.
Why are you staying? What's the point?
Mhm.
What is the point? Besides just disrespecting yourself and teaching yourself, I deserve less.
Mhm.
And we all know I'm not here to fucking play with that.
Correct.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So ultimately, it's your decision as to whether or not you're comfortable with that. But communication is the key, right? If you are uncomfortable with certain aspects, like Mari said, then you address those aspects. If they don't want to respect that those are your boundaries, okay, well, then you know where you stand and you know what you need to do. But also, I would really take a long, hard look at what it is that is triggering you about this situation. Is it because
Absolutely.
of past relationships? Is it because of insecurity in yourself of like, well, I think she's prettier than me, or she's skinnier than me, or fill in the blank, right? That shit doesn't matter. If you are secure in your relationship and you know what you have to offer that person, that fucking shit doesn't matter. But I get the insecurity part of it, but you have to check that and you have to work through that. It's nobody's responsibility but yours to work through that stuff. Can you hear
What? No.
this fucking diesel truck that's outside? It's so loud.
I literally just saw your face going. I was like, "What? Who's being disrespectful?
It's
Like, what? I
so
didn't hear
loud.
anything."
I
I know
you guys can hear
Zeus.
it.
Zeus showed up in one of my sessions today, right outside the door, and I was like, "That's not a baby. I'm sorry." And he was like, "It didn't sound like a cat." And I was like, "Well, it's a grandpa cat, and he's upset the door's shut, so I'm sorry."
It is in fact an animal, not a
Yeah,
child.
but there's
Please
also
don't reject me.
plastic in here, and he'll chew on that, so I don't really. It's a lose-lose for me. Like, oh man. All right.
Hopefully this was helpful and it shed some different perspectives.
And if you have questions or concerns about this episode, like if you're like, okay, I got another caveat for you, or like, what about this scenario? Let's talk about it. Send us a message on Instagram, email us. So Instagram, we're Rewriting Her Story Podcast. On Gmail, we're rewritingherstorypodcast@gmail.com. Steph is the Spooky Therapist, and I am at BEA_XO11. So let us know, because I'd love to take it to the next level further. Y'all know I like to debate and argue. So let us know. Hopefully my smoker cough is gone by the time this is airing, because it's really getting hard out here for a pimp. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Until next time. Bye.